Hello, how you doing? So for the systematic reviews, it's kind of like an accordion where it's always kind of like compressing or expanding as like this big communication device where we can find out what matters the most in a particular instance. So there's a lot of confusion and dismay, and so hopefully I can help you dissuade your dismay. So I'm going to show you three things today, but also we can keep talking. So the first one is how do you start to build some of your systematic review keywords? That will help a lot in helping you determine databases, but also kind of like how people are talking about it. And another thing was I will show you how to find other systematic reviews, and you can just kind of like look up their recipe and you can crib off of that. I've heard that is like one of the more common ones. And then I'll also, along the way, show you some of the top databases that people use for things like this, but who to reach out to. Okay, I guess that's four things. So from the library homepage, I'm going to go to Advanced Search. And I think I already typed this in, suicide prevention. So in a systematic review, you look at all of the different keywords that this could be described as. So we have this, and I'm going to nest this search, suicide and prevention. I don't know, in the clinical work, are people going to say taking one's life or ending one's life, or is it going to be formally called suicide? That's part of your decision making and like where you're drawing data from. So if you're drawing from like news sources, which is not systematic review, or maybe the humanities or something like that, or maybe I guess you could do a systematic review of media, then you might want to incorporate words like that. So the first thing is use the words that you think they might use, and then look for it in the title, because we want these things to be, and I'm looking in the catalog, so it's looking at everything. So we're starting with like the biggest bucket. So if I'm looking in the title for some of the keywords, I'm just exploring where these things might show up. So in the title, so there's a lot of books, that's okay. But if you narrow down to peer-reviewed journals, what you can do is you just cruise through the titles. It might be handy to have like a beverage with you, whatever you like, but just cruise through and see how people are talking about these. So it looks like there's a lot of follow-up. There's strategies, but it looks like this might be like a good one. This is like behavior, so maybe it's like indicators. So preventative, would that be another word? I don't know. So as you go, you would take notes. Once you get a good set of keywords for this, then you would go down and you could go into like the journal title that these show up in the most. Sometimes it shows databases, not in this search. But you can like narrow down into life sciences, but I'll touch that one in a minute. So subject, this is really broad at this level, but you could see where it falls under. Ooh, risk factors, there's age groups and populations. Looks like prevention's a big one. What you would do next, as you're taking notes and getting a feel for it, you do healthcare or hospital, or I don't know, would it be counseling? I'm going to avoid counseling because you're looking at healthcare, or nursing, or clinic, and it could do a star, so it'd be clinic or clinical. What's some other settings? We'll just leave it with that. That one should go in the title too. Oh, my head is in the way, because we're only just looking for like the greatest of the greatest at this point. We'll have to go to peer-reviewed again. Is there, screening? That's interesting. So screening, is that like prevention? So you might have these specific strategies for the intervention that you would, or for the prevention as you would go. Do we have databases? No, okay. Well, so here's my first tip. After you're gathering more keywords and expanding on those, and you'll get like these exotic recipes of an advanced search. So write down every iteration as you go, but you can start to see a trend. So psychology, I don't know where you fall under. It's just suicide prevention. So there's nursing. Let's see what other journals this shows up. Mental health services, psychiatry, psychology. Seen a lot of like psychiatry and psychology. What you would then do is you could say, okay, I need to know what the best database is for psychology and psychiatry. You could then go to databases and go to psychology, and whoever the librarian is, they will have picked their favorite. And this happens to be one of the more favorite ones for systematic reviews. But under most of these, there'll be a subject guide, and you can reach out to the person and you can say, hey, I'm doing this systematic review for suicide prevention in healthcare settings. Which databases would you recommend for a systematic review? And then you'd reach, that might be just like an email that you reach out, just like you did to me. Well, let's do that same search. Let me show you another sample. Go into psychology. And I'm going to do that same search. Again, beverage in hand. I'm just going to do this same search, but I'm going to do it in this database. Come on, mouse. So this is where you would start experimenting with the database to validate whether or not it's worthwhile getting into. Systematic reviews typically don't, they'll look at like the title or the abstract, but I'm just, again, to make it merciful, I'm just doing the title. And on this one, I'm going to make sure that it's just peer-reviewed stuff, kind of like I did in the catalog. And in this one, there's advocacy, psychiatric hospitals, clinicians. There's a whole bunch of different ways of approaching it. Clinician anxiety, but in this one, you can go in, again, under the subjects, the major heading, and see who's talking about it. So like health personnel attitudes. Oh, there's like risk measurement. So it looks like in this one, there's a lot more about training of health professionals. There's populations. There's disorders. So you get the idea. We're farming around for more keywords and ideas. But here's a fun one. Why don't we, just for kicks, let's put in systematic review. That should be in at least in the abstract. Suicide prevention for older people, systematic review. When was this published? Why do I not see the date? That's bizarre. Oh, there we go, 2020. So it's not the newest. But if you go into this article, you're like, oh, this looks pretty good. They'll give you a recipe for what databases they looked at and what keywords they used. If this isn't the population you're looking for, it should still be okay. Because the databases haven't changed that much. Background, so here they have Prisma guidelines, and they use these databases. Look at that. My advice actually paid off. Hey, there's a cookie. I love the cookie metaphor. Okay, so you could go through several systematic reviews and just see a trend for the databases that you want to try. If there's any databases that you don't know how to access, let me know, and I can tell you if it's something that maybe they renamed it since this time. Ooh, there's only 2. Oh no, here's another one. Education programs for nursing students. So you can go through and look at what databases they used. In their methodology, they should give you a list of keywords too, so you should not have to rewrite the book. So let's do another one. Have you ever heard of Scopus or Web of Science? Not again. Looks like our database went down again. Let me go to the back door which is through the research guides and my social work guide. Social work, PhD and master's help. Okay. By the way, here's a list of my favorite databases, including some that were mentioned. I don't know if I have PubMed. I used Medline. But here's a list of databases that we use. But Scopus and Web of Science, you can look up everything, but it's only like the top level peer-reviewed journals that show up in here. So let's do our search again. Suicide prevention. And in this one, we can add everything that we did before. And maybe this should be in the abstract? Or should this be in the title? This is where you negotiate whether something is important enough. And then we'll do systematic review again. But instead of just being in psychology, oh, I have a syntax error. Oh, maybe it doesn't like this. Star. It didn't like the star. What you can do with this, you can see things that might not have showed up in there. So this is like a Middle East current psychiatry. Does that show up in PsycInfo? Maybe or maybe not. Here's a public health journal. That definitely didn't show up in PsycInfo. Here's a nursing. This would show up in a different. Here's old folks psychiatry. That's probably in PsycInfo. But there's two nursing ones. So this is where the systematic review works, because you check this database systematically, and then you put everything in a pile. Then you look at another database systematically, and you put those in a pile. Once you've made all the piles, then you deduplicate, and then you've got like a literature precedence. Does that make sense? This is kind of the way that I would approach it. If I was worried about this, I might push this out into the abstract. And then I might get more. But setting up the recipe is the easy part. The hard part is going through each of these articles and grabbing like the methodology and the instruments and all that other stuff as you go. Does this help? Let me know. And I'm happy to help further, but this is like Dale's systematic review in a grossly understated, simplistic nutshell.